We've got weekend storms on the horizon, plus some gusty winds. New advisory coming out heading into the weekend. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, and we are going to be tracking some of the active weather heading our way. Now, it's going to be very isolated, though. I do want to send that out. It's not going to be widespread rain and snow like what we saw for the last weekend of April. Our headlines include more clouds coming in for our Friday night. That leads to cooler conditions, showers, thunderstorms, and then looking ahead a little deeper into the weekend, some windy weather making a return. Here's a look at the visible satellite image. I just wanted to start off with this because we saw the low clouds coming in early this morning, kind of that pulse of that cooler air pulling in from the Pacific. So some low clouds, some occasional gusty winds. It felt very coastal in parts of the valley, getting us going on this Friday, kind of signaling that shift to a change in our weather pattern. Overall, though, sunny skies will prevail through much of our Friday. It's not until we get deeper into the evening that we start to draw in some of the clouds from off the coast, and that is our next weather system that will bring us that chance of showers. Now, this will be more widespread cooling throughout the region, not as much in the way of widespread showers. And we still have that cutoff low in Southern California. That will also play a part in the active weather coming our way for our Friday, with the chance of thunderstorms once again for this year. Haven't seen too much yet, but that risk of thunderstorms actually lasts into our Saturday. It will be in the marginal category, actually, for parts of the Intermountain West. So it could be an active Saturday and start to our weekend, as well as the first weekend of May. Sunday, that risk starts to shift a little bit farther to the south, just around Highway 50, around South Lake Tahoe, and then points southward. With that, we also see a chance of lingering snow showers in the morning. So there's a lot to unpack here. We've got our weather forecast explainers, weather and climate specials, all on our weather playlist. I invite you to download that ABC 10 Plus app on your TV, wherever you stream for free. It's live, local, always on. We've got so many different features on there. So it really expands upon what we don't have time for on broadcast news, and we're able to really unpack the finer details and the context that goes into it as well. So again, the weekend changes that we're going to be highlighting is the cooler weather coming our way. We've been sitting in the 80s, almost 90 degrees here throughout the valley for much of the work week. Rain, snow, wind, as well as those isolated thunderstorms we just mentioned a moment ago. So tracking what's coming our way, we get that pulse of moisture coming in from the Pacific. It's going to be a quick mover, but it hangs around into our Sunday morning, largely for the Sierra and areas just south of Highway 50. Day by day, let's plan this out here for the first weekend of May. It's going to be a little showery and unsettled for some folks, but for the valley, what you'll notice is outside of a hit or miss shower, it's really not going to be a high impact storm for us at all. We get the clouds increasing for tonight's forecast, and then moving into our Saturday, we start the day off dry but cloudy through much of the valley. The bigger area that will see the risk of showers and even thunderstorms is going to be in parts of the foothills, the Sierra, and then the best chance for valley showers really hugging the central and northern part of the Sacramento Valley. Most of the southern Sacramento Valley, the northern San Joaquin Valley, not really seeing the chance for those showers. It starts to clear out by our Saturday afternoon through much of the valley, whereas the coastal range still going to be seeing some isolated activity. And you'll notice for parts of the central Sierra around Yosemite, still looking at areas of snow, which, by the way, linger into our Sunday morning, as well as you'll see Saturday night, still fairly dry. A few pockets of some showers here, but again, not much for Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, right through much of the Central Valley. Sunday morning, we start to see a return to some of those snow flurries picking up for the Tahoe Basin and then points southward, as well as for parts of the foothills. So if you wake up with some damp roadways, as well as the cars that kind of have some of the drizzle on it, just be aware that's what's going on there. It doesn't last long by the time most folks are getting out and about. Some cloud cover through the Central Valley, but outside of that, the only snow that we see is right there along 395, and then a few isolated showers left over for Sunday. Again, we have that risk of isolated thunderstorms for the afternoon, mainly Highway 50 and points southward. So that would be right from this about Placerville, South Lake Tahoe line, and then areas south. It clears out quickly on Sunday, and that's when we return our attention to the winds that'll be picking up at that point. Wind advisory posted now for much of the valley as well as the Delta for our Sunday afternoon, even into our Monday afternoon and early evening. The winds start to pick up once that cold front moves through. The low pressure system as well behind it as that high starts to build in. It's kind of the opposition of those two different air masses trying to kind of compete for territory, if you will. So by Sunday evening along the coastal range, we are looking at the increase in winds, and you'll notice the direction is out of the northwest. That's going to dry us out and warm us up pretty quickly. So despite the fact that we see that cool weekend on tap, at least cooler than where we've been, we rebound back into the 80s, almost 90 by the time we get to the work week. And that's because of these contributing very warm winds that will develop by the time we get into our Monday. We'll notice that Monday morning really quite noticeable on the west side of the valley through parts of the coastal range, and then that transitions its way through much of the valley by Monday morning. So kind of rocking and rolling here on the morning commute. It's dry, but we're going to have to contend with those winds on and off throughout the day, not to mention the allergies as well. So commute, the allergies kind of all in play for our Monday, one of those days if you can. If you have bad allergies, might want to keep it indoors on Monday. By Monday evening, we're still looking at those winds, but they're below that criteria for our wind advisory. So it looks like we'll see that expire by about 8 p.m. Again, little quick pulse of that cooler air coming in Friday, Saturday, even into our Sunday. But right behind the passage of this front, we get right back to the unseasonably warm conditions through much of the first full week of May. Our temperatures average start to go up. By May, our average monthly high is about 80 degrees, June 87, and then of course we hit that heat July, August in the low 90s, but we are on that trend upwards here heading towards our May forecast, and it looks like we'll be very close to hitting that for much of this week. Last rainy day is our average is May 16th. So we're right around the corner from seeing that, where we generally don't see much in the way of more than 1/10 of an inch of rain on a single day. We may hit that for an entire month, but on a total 24-hour period, we don't see much more than maybe 1/100 of an inch or so. Statewide precipitation, as we're kind of winding down our wet part of the year and heading into a drier, warmer part of the year, it's good to take account of where we stand at this point. And for most of us, we are running a deficit. It's not much, and given that we've had 2 previous years that were pretty close to, if not well above average, this didn't hit as hard as it would, say, in the middle of a drought period, especially because the northern part of the state, Redding and Eureka, really started off with big numbers in the beginning of the year, and it just never lost speed. Even with that dry January, we still continue to see a really nice storm track right through extreme northern California. So again, the State Water Project coming out with increased allocation to 50%, up from 40% last month. And that's because our snowpack season was near 100% when we account for the statewide snowpack. Now, there were some pockets that had slightly lower averages, including the central and southern Sierra, but the northern Sierra, big winner in this last winter season, and that's where our biggest reservoirs are. So for the State Water Project, that's going to be Oroville. That's their largest reservoir. We have above average reservoir levels throughout the entire state. Oroville could reach capacity, and that really could add some cushion to next year. That's a real key point that we'll continue to monitor for the coming months. The reason being is this was our 3rd year that we hit average snowpack for the entire state, or at least near average snowpack. It's a rarity. We only usually do that about every 25 years or so, which it means, historically speaking, we're very likely to head into a drought period. So it's going to be interesting to see what water managers do with all of our reservoirs in the coming summer months as we rely more on that water supply, since there's nothing coming in the way of precipitation. Here's a look at Lake Oroville, and as you can see, it's been a steady climb upwards. The areas shaded in blue, and I'm going to show you 3 reservoirs. The areas shaded in blue are going to be the averages, and everything running above average. So it's been a steady climb. Even when we hit that dry January, we were still seeing some snowmelt filling our reservoirs, and that's really where we see the reservoirs fill, is from snowmelt. And they were designed that way, very strategically placed in areas that have a natural feeding conveyance, being the rivers, to feed those reservoirs. So Folsom Lake is filled by the American River, and then Oroville's filled by the Feather River. Folsom, much smaller, but it does feed a large part of the capital region for Sacramento, and you can see also steadily climbing. I did a little crunching of numbers, and at one point in April, Folsom Lake was filling up so fast the inflow was equivalent every minute to about 8 Olympic swimming pools. So there was a lot of water coming into the lake, helping to really drive up those numbers to where we stand right now. And again, water managers kind of playing around with those numbers, trying to figure out, okay, how much can we keep, given that we may indeed head into that drier year next year. Lake Shasta, well, that's going to be our largest lake. It is fed by the Sacramento River, and actually the headwater is the Sacramento River that flows right down into Sacramento. So currently holding 4.3 million acre feet of water, well above average. It is beautiful to see those lakes right now. They're almost going to meet their peak capacity in June. So now is the time, if you really want to see these full, beautiful lakes throughout California, get out there now, because we're going to start drawing some of that water here through the dry summer months. Here's a look at where things stand. And again, we're anywhere from about 90 to 96% of capacity, well above average for Trinity, Shasta, Oroville, Folsom, New Melones, Don Pedro, big reservoirs as well for the Central Valley, well above average, and about 80 to 90% full. San Luis, a lot of flexibility with this one. It's an off-stream pumped reservoir, so we can take water in. It's not snow melt fed directly, and they really have a lot of flexibility with this particular reservoir, which will then flow into the California aqueduct all the way south into Southern California. Not going to get much from this next storm. We're really starting to shut down the average precipitation here, especially for snowmelt. This is right about the point where we transition for more in the way of snow melt and less in the way of snowfall, and that will eventually head downstream and fill those reservoirs. This is about it. We get this little pulse of moisture coming in on Saturday, a bigger player for the foothills and the Sierra, and then after that, it's all about this building ridge of high pressure. We'll get a little bit of a low coming in by the end, or I should say the middle of next week, which will drop our temperature slightly, but overall, it's going to be an above average outlook for our temperatures, with sinking, warming air and a dry outlook that heads our way for about the next week and a half or so. Likely warmer throughout much of the Intermountain West all the way to the coast, and that likely wetter scenario is shifting off to the east here. So it looks like much of California will be dry. Looking at the forecast numbers to kick off this first weekend of May, I should say. 50s for the high country, and that's why that snow level is going to stay so high there. 60s and 50s for much of the foothills. Lower elevations will be in the 70s. Along the coast, we're in the 60s, inland areas in the 70s, and we'll see those 70s pretty much region-wide throughout the valley. Our 5-day forecast, we got that chance of thunderstorms Saturday and Sunday, dry and warming as we head into next week. In fact, the foothills will be close to 80 by the time we get to Tuesday, so it's a quick turnaround here with this little roller coaster we've been playing. Slight chance of a sprinkle coming through on Saturday. Otherwise, most of the weekend is going to be fairly dry, and it's a quick turnaround with highs close to 90 by the following weekend. Don't forget Mother's Day. It's next weekend. Temperatures in the mid 80s to right around 90 for pretty much of this 10-day forecast.